So the Steelers hired Arthur Smith to be the offensive coordinator for the upcoming season. If anybody missed that news. How are Steelers fans feeling about it? I'd say they're still debating. Okay. All jokes aside, I did not expect to be doing I made the last Steelers video after the Bills lost. And I was like, I won't talk to you guys about this for another 6 months. 3 weeks later, here we go. All right. Pittsburgh hired Arthur Smith to be their OC. My personal thoughts, wasn't my first choice. Especially after some of the other candidates we interviewed. I'm really bummed that we did not get the Rams OC who was interviewing with us, or the Rams quarterback coach, sorry, who was interviewing with us. He was my number one. I didn't even know he was available. So when we requested to interview him, I was like, let's go. And then he went to Atlanta. Wow. We got Arthur Smith and they got him. If Atlanta balls out this year, it's going to be a very depressing season to be a Steelers fan. Okay, so he was my one. Clint Kubiak was my two. And then I really am sorry, I can't remember the name of the quarterbacks coach for the Texans who we interviewed as well. He was my three, mainly because he got to work in a system with Bobby Slowick and C.J. Stroud that worked. And he's also younger, so I'd love to see all the schemes he was implementing. I'm not saying that Arthur Smith is old. I think he's 40 years old. And then it maybe goes Arthur Smith. Okay, listen, all Steelers fans, you have to admit, this is so much better than Byron Leftwich. I'm very happy we did not do Byron Leftwich. I will give the Steelers props for actually going outside the organization. This is a dude who has never had any ties to the organization. None. Zip. Zilch. And they said they were going to do that, and they did. Now, I'm going to be 100% honest here. When I first saw the notification, I basically I did what I started this video with. But you think about, and it's just because of recency bias, because of what Arthur Smith did while he was the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. He had 3 draft picks within the top 8 picks, and they were all underutilized. Arguably, the most recent season was their most utilization, but you were still seeing things like Jonnu Smith getting more involved than what was Kyle Pitts, the 3rd overall pick? And arguably the most talented tight end to ever come out of a draft. And Drake London finally showed some sparks of brilliance. And then Bijan had, 6 goal line carries all year? 6. He had 4 rushing touchdowns. So yeah, the recency bias is definitely why I would scream into a pillow and hate this hiring. Now, co-host of my podcast, Zach, has denounced his fandom of the Steelers after this happened. So, GG Zach. But when you sit back and think about it, when Arthur Smith wasn't a head coach and he was the offensive coordinator back in Tennessee, he wasn't that bad. And that's going to be a real tough pill to swallow. Because here's, I think, the difference between being the OC and the head coach. The biggest difference that no one's really thinking about. The OC designs the playbook, they design the schemes, they implement the schemes, and they usually are the play callers as well. Obviously, we saw it's not always the case. Towards the end of the season when we fired Matt Canada, you had a play caller and a play designer. But 99% of the time, the offensive coordinator is the play designer as well as the play caller. But do you know what the offensive coordinator usually doesn't get a say in? Is personnel coming in and out. And, because, there are certain formations that use certain personnels, but at the end of the day, Mike Tomlin gets the veto power. So if he sees that we run out an I formation with only Calvin Austin in, and then Jalen Warren in at running back, and then Najee in at fullback, and then Darnell Washington in at tight end, and there's just none of our premier weapons on the field, Mike Tomlin can go, hey, yo, timeout. No. Put in George Pickens somewhere onto this field. Put Deontay Johnson on the field somewhere. Put Pat Freiermuth on the field somewhere. One running back, please. That's the nice thing. He can be overruled. So I think that's one thing that people need to think about. Another thing, I'm going to rate off some numbers. These are the Tennessee Titans offensive rankings for the 2 years that Arthur Smith was the offensive coordinator. The Tennessee Titans, by the way, that only on offense had A.J. Brown, Ryan Tannehill, and Derrick Henry. And if we're being honest, we've seen Ryan Tannehill without Arthur Smith before and without him afterwards, and he has not been the same. But let's look at this nonetheless. Jesus. So, his first season of the OC, they were 10th in the league in points scored, 12th in the league in total yards. That's pretty dang good. That's top 12. You know where Pittsburgh's been for the last... Actually, I'm going to look this up. I'm going to look up where Pittsburgh has ranked over the last couple of years because I'm genuinely curious. Hold on. Yeah, this is so professional, I know. Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay. Okay. So, oh, Jesus. Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, my God. All right. So, 2019, we finished 27th in points, 30th in yards. 2020, we finished 12th in points. Okay. 24th in yards. 2021, we finished 21st in points, 23rd in yards. 2022, we finished 26th in points, 23rd in yards, and the most recent season, 28th in points, 25th in yards. And then I'm going to look at the defense for those same years. 5th in points allowed, 3rd in points allowed, 20 in points allowed, 10 in points allowed, 6th in points allowed. Let's go to yards those same seasons. 5th in yards allowed, 3rd in yards allowed, 24th in yards allowed, 13th in yards allowed, 21st in yards allowed. So we have a defense that can get people off the field. And if we can get an offense that, the 2 seasons he was the OC. So I read you his first season. Now, the last season he was the OC, 4th in points, 2nd in yards. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to give Arthur Smith all the credit because he had Derrick Henry in his prime. But as much as a star player can make a difference, it helps elevate a star player when you have good scheming and good play calling. Najee is like a Derrick Henry light. And Pittsburgh's going to pick up the 5th-year option on Najee as well, so we have him for at least 2 more years since this is going to be his 4th season incoming. So we have a Derrick Henry light, and those same seasons, I believe, A.J. Brown had over 1,000 yards in both seasons. So when there is a head coach, and I think Mike Vrabel and Mike Tomlin have very similar mantras when it comes to coaching styles. They're very personnel and player heavy. That's people want to play for those coaches, not necessarily for the schematics, but because they get the best out of their players. And also Arthur Smith even said that one of the reasons he chose Pittsburgh was because of the culture. So he's obviously going into this knowing he's not going to have top dogs saying everything. You good? I know. I'm also confused about this hiring. But anyways, so if we're being not over dramatic about this is not the worst hiring Pittsburgh could have had, considering they've been bottom 20th in the last, at least bottom 20th in the last 4 years in offensive yards and points, except for the one season where we were 12th in the league. And we're getting a guy who was in top 12 both years that he was an offensive coordinator. I'm optimistic. We have the right players. Oh, and I didn't even talk about this. Another thing that was rumored is Mike Munchak will only come and coach to any team if Arthur Smith goes with him. And I don't know what the demographics of my Steelers videos are, but if you're younger, I'm getting old, man. Even younger than me, and I'm not even old. But if that name doesn't really sound familiar, or if it sounds familiar but you don't know who that is, he was our offensive line coach for basically the late 2000s and the 2010s. He is what built the phenomenal offensive line Pittsburgh had throughout the entirety of the 2010s and the late stages of the 2000s. If we can get Mike Munchak, that is an amazing upgrade. Pat Meyer, I believe, is our current offensive line coach, and he came from Carolina a season after Carolina was ranked like 29th in offensive line protection. So getting Mike Munchak back would be great. And also, this is a draft where Pittsburgh's most likely going to draft a center and a tackle. Please, at least that's what they should do. And so if you're able to draft either a left tackle or a right tackle, and you can move Broderick to left tackle if you draft a right tackle, because Broderick did a great job at right tackle this season. But nonetheless, you have a young offensive line with possibly 3 new young pieces, with Broderick in his second season, and then hopefully a guard and a tackle, or a center and a tackle in their rookie seasons, as well as Isaac Siumalu, who is still very young, and he was a phenomenal upgrade this season. And then having James Daniels at the other side at guard. That's a very, very great offensive line situation to be in. And if you have Mike Munchak coaching that up, I think this is another situation where we could have a tangible and top 5 O-line in the league for the next decade. So there's that. That then opens up the running game. The one interesting part, though, is when Arthur Smith was play calling and play designing for the Titans, they used more of a vertical scheme. So they liked to go outside the tackles. Things like stretches, off tackles. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh had their most success this season when we were running gaps. Things like draws, inside zones, trap plays. So this is where I'm curious, because my biggest question mark here is where Jaylen Warren versus Najee are going to fall. And I think if they want to continue this 50-50 backfield split, my battery's about to die. Really? If they want to continue this 50-50 backfield split, I keep getting hate comments on that one video. The 50-50 backfield split, I think anything that's going to be vertical is probably going to be Jaylen Warren, because we've seen that Najee really isn't the best runner when it comes to vertical, and anything that's inside the gaps is going to be Najee Harris. So my camera's dying, so I really would like to talk about this for much longer, but me and Zach will probably talk on the podcast. But if I had to give it a grade, I'd give it, honestly, a B+. There was a way worse situation Pittsburgh could have had here, and if Arthur Smith can be what he was in Carolina, in Tennessee, I think Pittsburgh can have a top 5 offense next season, especially with this defense. This is a season where, and Art Rooney even in a press conference said, I'm tired. I don't know the exact quote, but it was basically like, I'm tired of losing the playoffs. So we need to make a stand. Like, we need to do something. So Pittsburgh's going to be very serious this offseason. So I'm curious what's going to happen, but this is a situation where Pittsburgh's defense can play how it always has for the last 5 years, and their offense actually takes a step forward to not even just like top 20, but I was talking top 15, not top 10, not top 5, top 15 or 12. Then this is a situation where Pittsburgh can be a serious contender in the offseason, but I've seen and said that can happen so many times in the past that I am not willing to do it until the regular season. I see something in the regular season. Even if preseason we're blowing everyone out by 50 points, I will not take anything for granted. I will not actually make any valid assumptions until I see something of like splash in the regular season. And Pittsburgh's going to have a rough schedule next season because of how they finished and how the division finished. Anyways, camera's going to die. I'm curious your guys' thoughts. Please let me know. And please go watch the podcast. Okay, bye. Oh, wait, no, I have to do the